I have to say that Sylvia is very pleased to be invited to this research council. And unfortunately, she couldn't make it because there's another meetings in DC that she had to go. So that is unfortunate. But she really valued the academics, the academic world, bring into the discussion of global agenda. So that's why she sent a representative here to attend, to do some presentation on her behalf. In the last 15 years, I believe most of you heard of the Education for All, Millennium Development Goals, and Sustainable Development Goals. So in the last 15 years, we all know that the EFA and MDG have done a relatively good job. They are bringing many countries have achieved universal primary educations. And with this, countries have improved in terms of data collections and also bring children to school. So there's an increase in participation and enrollment in school. However, what they have found, that the international education community have found that after bringing children to school, they are sad to know that there are many children who are in school, even though they have gone to school for 3 to 4 years, they are not learning. That bring in the questions that the SDG have tried to address. The Sustainable Development Goal, there are 17 goals. One of it, education, take a place. SDG 4 is on Sustainable Development Goal in educations. And here, in this next 15 years, the international education community is trying to address not only bring kids to school, access, but they wanted kids to learn in school. So it's access plus learning. So how to achieve this? Of course, that means it needs more data, because we have to create data to fill the gaps. We have information, UNESCO Institute for Statistics have been collecting information on access and participation, but with this new agenda, we need to collect more data. We need to collect data that more focus on learning. That's why that will bring me to the next topic, which is large-scale assessment. And then but with all this big amount of information, we need to focus on what we need to get out of the big amount of information out there. So media play a role. Media, that's why in a way we need to educate the journalists for them to know how to release information that could help to improve learning across countries. And that will bring me to the point that what UIS could do in this area. So I will briefly put it into 4 points. So first I will introduce the SDG. And with that, talk about large-scale assessment, what is the role of large-scale assessment in SDG, then what is the role of media in playing in terms of disseminations, and lastly, to use the message to help country move the SDG agenda. So could anyone tell me about what they understand and know about SDG 4?
From what I understand, it's that it's talk of inclusive. Well, I think you get it right there.
Yes.
And they're looking at not just primary education, which I think they felt overtook the MDGs. That too much focus was there. That was low-hanging fruit, and other things got left behind. And they're really emphasizing the lifelong and adult literacy, etc., as well, beyond primary.
Yes. Yeah, and yes, you're right on most of the point. It's just that's why yesterday I was silent on the higher education. I think so far the SDG are focusing on basic education still, basic skill and all that, because we need to bring the mass majority up to a level before we can talk about higher educations. So, and higher education usually are for those who are more elite because they have to pass through basic education first, secondary, before they reach higher education. So in this SDG goal, so you'll notice that the focus is on basic education, but yet there are 5 out of the 7 targets. 5 out of the 7 target is focusing on learning and learning outcome. So, and also in the SDG, there's 2 thematics, global thematics, which is equities, like what you mentioned, and learning, quality of education. So, and as what you also rightly mentioned, the international community in Incheon, Seoul, 2015, has pledged to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning. Because, and as you will notice in the UIS website, the UIS and UNICEF has conducted studies on out-of-school children and have found that in 2013, there are 124 million children out of school. Even though there are many children gone to school, but there's still a big mass of students are not in school. And what are the causes of this? I mean, there are many factors to children out of school. Some of the factors, because children in a conflict, fragile state, country in conflict, children in rural area, children are disabled with some disabilities, so they couldn't go to school because the government doesn't provide the opportunity or the access for them. And children in low socio-economic status, plus some of them are girls. Because of various factors in most of the developing countries, when they come to sending kids to school, when there are too many kids, usually the boys are the ones who go to school. So that's why in the SDG 4, they're trying to address this on equities. And that's why we need to collect information on that. Lifelong learning, because we want to cover from before they go to school and early childhood development all the way to adults, which cover adult literacy. So this, to give you a big picture of it, in SDG 4, there are 11 indicators. And out of these 11 indicators, 5 of it, you can see the vertical circles and the horizontal circles, 5 of this are relating to learning and learning outcome. For example, 4.1, which is target 4.1, is on basic education that cover children in school. The 3 measurements target so far we have the education or technical community have come down to is measuring kids at grade 2 and 3, because that is where they just started school and they have a couple of years of schooling. So to measure where they stand in terms of schooling. The next measurement point is end of primary. And hopefully by finishing a number of years of school, the children will have learned something before they move on to lower secondary. And the third measurement point is lower secondary. Of these 3, we still need to discuss on various things. So far, the content that's covering is reading and mathematics. By concentrating in reading and mathematics doesn't mean that the other subject area is not important. It's just that because of the human and financial resources, that's what we are concentrating now. But it doesn't mean that it will reduce to this and we will not be covering other things. As you will see in other targets, like 4.7, which cover global civics educations and education sustainable development. So in 4.2, now we are expanding, the UIS is expanding data collection in early childhood. So in the last 2 years, we have redesigned our questionnaires to include, to collect more information that cover the whole lifespans. That means before the children go to school, the early childhood developments, before they enter primary school, that is covered in Target 4.2, and Target 4.6, which cover youth kids that is 15 years and above, plus youth and adults, and to understand if they have the basic skills. And the vertical circles means that these are the sort of similar age grade range, as the community have pledged to provide equities, learnings, and quality learning for all. We also need to understand if they actually, what kind of skill do they have, what kind of skill do they need to be able to be productive in the communities, for the countries. So Target 4.4 will cover the ICT in education, that the skill that needs to help them to be productive. So far, IEA have produced large-scale assessment. Okay, so I have to go a bit faster then. So 4.4, like IEA have produced large-scale assessment on international computers literacy, ICILS. International Computer Literacy Survey. At the same time, they also have a survey on international civics and global educations. These two are targeted at grade 8 students, and at this point in time, it has to be scaled up in order to have information for us to monitor SDG 4. So at this point in time, we're still on discussion on how to work on this 4.4 and 4.7. And as you can see, 4.5, the target 4.5 is on equities, that is transversal, so it covers from early childhood all the way to adults. So as most of you know, the UIS, the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, has a mandate. In 2015, Education 2030 Framework for Action, it has ratified the UIS will remain the official source of cross-national comparable data on education. In addition to that, collecting all this additional information, UIS is also working with partners to develop new indicators, which include statistical approach and monitoring tools, so as to better assess progress towards the SDG. And why large-scale assessment? I guess I don't have to say much about this because I think it was talked about in the last workshop or last meetings. Like large-scale assessment, what the value of large-scale assessment bring to the table. As you know, since we already have access information, now what we need is to develop tools and methodology to collect more information on learning. And because we know that it will help country to produce more policy relevant, will help country to produce policy relevant, develop the right policies to develop their education system. And also it will, of course, with good data, will be able to produce positive influence on life and shape education policy, and also help country to allocate funding to the needed populations. That's what equity come into place. And with good information, we'll be able to provide information to ministers, teachers, parents, and students. But we need to have a good dissemination strategy. The strategy that is to provide the right focus and the right message to user of the data. Okay, so I'll skip this. Okay. As I think I sent to Mary the blogs by Sylvia. Sylvia has very clear message to send regarding data, how to use information. Of course, the UIS doesn't endorse any way of approach, but her idea is that given the rich amount of information collected in large-scale assessment, we shouldn't be concentrating on league table and narrowing all the information we collected into one tiny number, which is the rank order of countries and learning. So she's encouraging that the media should be focusing on how to use the information or data and disseminate the information to help people or data user to understand how this could change life, improve life, how to use the data to put everything on the right perspective. That's why she thinks that data is important to inform and engage stakeholders at different stages, teachers, parents, principals, policymakers, and to make data transparent and accessible. And the main focus also for media to focus on problems or cause of all this problem. Why are children not going to school? Why are children not learning in school? Not on output, which is like test result. And the last thing is to suggest recommendations, not focusing on league tables.